The helicopter showed up first as a tremor in the glass. Coffee rippled in Dr. Milton Cade's novelty mug. Dust drifted in the sun, slicing across his office. He kept reading glasses slipping down his nose, lips pressed tight around words that had already judged her. Dr. Mercer. He did not look up. This is the third deviation in 6 weeks. Quinn Mercer stood at ease. Hands loose, shoulders square, neutral face. The quiet in her posture made the room feel smaller. You opened a chest in the ER without cardiothoracic backup. No attending consulted, no authorization. You understand what that means for this hospital. The patient had tamponade. Her voice was level. Waiting 12 minutes would have killed him. That assessment is not yours to make. Cade set the report down slow and careful, like anything faster might crack something. The mug said safety first in a bright blue font. He seemed to notice it at the same time she did and pivoted his eyes away. We operate by protocol for a reason. He is alive, Quinn said. That is not the point. Cade took off his glasses and placed them beside the stack. Structure keeps people safe. Patients, staff, our capability as an institution. When you ignore it, you make us vulnerable. Her left hand brushed her right forearm. The cuff rode up. A thin black tattoo peeked out. A compass rose curled around the caduceus, north recorded in ink. Cade watched her hand and then looked back at the papers. Your surgical privileges are suspended for 2 weeks pending review. You will work clinical only. Basic suturing, standard ER care. Quinn nodded once, clean, economical. Do you have anything to say? No, sir. He waited as if silence might turn into protest. It did not. His jaw tightened just a fraction. He liked it better when young doctors made a scene. It justified the reprimand. You are dismissed. She left without slamming the door. Her face stayed blank until the hallway swallowed her. Then a brief tightening at the hinge of her jaw, the smallest correction in a drifting course. The locker room was empty. Steel benches, blue lockers, the smell of detergent and worn rubber. She opened the door with her name stenciled in black and pulled a jacket from the hook. The sleeve rode up again, compass and serpent on pale skin, the ink a quiet declaration that never raised its voice. Dr. Mercer. Maya Chen filled the doorway with a tablet under her arm and hair jammed behind one ear. Second year. Quick eyes that did not miss much. I heard Maya said, about the suspension. News moves fast. So do you. Maya's mouth made a line. CT is still dead. If we catch a pileup this morning, we are flying blind. Quinn zipped the jacket. Not my problem for 2 weeks. Right. Maya's gaze flicked to the tattoo. That is Navy. Quinn pulled the sleeve down. Long time ago. How long? Quinn gave her nothing. Maya studied her a beat. She was good at reading people, and Quinn knew she knew it. We will manage, Maya said. Unless it gets weird. It always gets weird. Quinn closed the locker. The echo was an empty hallway kind of sound. The ocean was a gray sheet with a seam of white where it met the shore. Quinn ran along hard-packed sand where the tide had fallen back, shoes whispering breath steady. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out, hold 4, breath in a square. The fog hung low and salted her lips. Kelp brushed her ankles like a rope. Far out, a fishing boat tolled its bell. The memory did not knock. It arrived complete. A canvas-walled hospital in Kandahar. Generator hum a constant floor under everything. A child's blood warmed through gloves. Lacerations where there should be smooth tissue. Her hands as calm as a flat sea. Then the voice crisp and close, ordering evacuation. 5 minutes. The mortar threat moving like weather. She refused. Her sutures were halfway. She could not move the girl. The lights went black. The backup should have kicked. It did not. She worked by headlamp, past fear and past time, and when everything returned, the world was smaller by one life. Quinn willed the image to the horizon and watched it go. 4 in, hold 4, 4 out, hold 4. Her pulse slid back into the groove she trusted. At Seacliff Regional, someone shouted down a corridor that was already full. The morning commuters had played roulette with black ice and lost. 20 cars, 2 trucks. The CT sat cold in the radiology suite with its error code flashing. Maya triaged in a voice so calm it froze panic. The smell of blood threaded the antiseptic. Coffee burned on a hot plate nobody had time to fix. 40 miles north, NAS Pelican Bay woke to a fireball. The destroyer's belly had lit like a struck match. Shrapnel seeded the lower decks. The base hospital had 2 operating rooms and courage. It did not have capacity. Chief Petty Officer Eli Garner stood with the radio biting his palm. He knew the shape of this day before the reports finished coming in. Static, voices too fast, the words artery and fragments and we need help. A memory slid into place. Not a date, a face. A surgeon on a hospital ship who moved like a scalpel through noise. He said her name into the radio and into his phone, and both signals went hunting. Quinn's phone vibrated on her kitchen table. Unknown number. She watched it ring for a count of 3 and let habit win. Mercer. This is Captain Dana Rios, Naval Medical Corps. The voice carried authority built on hours that never make it into the reports. We have a situation at Pelican Bay. Training accident. 12 casualties. 3 critical. We need a surgeon with combat vascular experience. I am on civilian status, suspended from surgical privileges. I am aware. A breath. The pressure in the space between the words dropped a degree. I am asking as a courtesy before I make it an order. You cannot order me. Quinn. The tone shifted, not softer, closer. You have done this exact extraction more times than anyone within 200 miles. We have a 19-year-old with a fragment flirting with his subclavian. Our base surgeon has done 2. Both died. We do not have time. Quinn looked out past her window where the sea kept its own counsel. No. Silence arrived and sat down between them. It lasted 2 long seconds. Kandahar was not your failure, Rios said. The generator was sabotaged. The report is declassified. You were used. The call ended. Her thumb had done it. She placed the phone face down as if the table might climb up and snatch it back. The tremor started in her fingers and then walked up her forearms. She watched it like a scientist watches weather. 4 in. Hold 4. 4 out. Hold 4. The tremor faded. The room stopped leaning. The phone rang again. Different number, local. Cade, she said. Captain Rios called me, he answered. His clipped certainty from the office was gone, the edges sanded by something that sounded like doubt. She is requesting a federal override. She says lives depend on you, that you have unique training. Do you believe her? I do not know what to believe. He exhaled. The sound was human. If you are reinstated for this emergency, will you work inside the system? I will do what the patients need. That is not an answer. It is the only one that matters. She ended the call and picked up her shoes. The apartment felt too small, the morning too loud. She ran again this time without counting, this time until the burn behind her ribs burned clean. When she turned back toward Seacliff, the fog had thinned. The water was steel with a strip of sunlight laid across it. A low thrum approached from the north. The sound was not a memory. It thickened the air and pressed sand flat. The Seahawk slid into view, gray on gray, moving on a line drawn by urgency. It flared over the beach and came down hard enough to lift spirals of grit. Rotor wash pinned her hair to her skull and flattened her shirt to her spine. The machine smell cut through salt. The side door rolled back. A figure in khaki stepped down and braced against the wind. Captain Rios walked toward her. She was tall and composed with the kind of tired that does not touch posture. She stopped 3 feet away and raised a tablet. The live feed showed a boy whose chest was wrapped in red. Monitors pulled him toward the edge. Hands pressed hard on a wound at the shoulder. Numbers drifted wrong. Seaman Tyler Brooks Rios said, 19, fragment against the subclavian, 1 bad move and he empties out. Quinn's eyes tracked the angles out of reflex. Entry, trajectory, distance to the vertebral branch, potential for graft. The plan sketched itself in the space her breath occupied. Vascular loops, proximal and distal control, extraction following the original path, proline ready, Fogarty optional, cell saver if it behaves. If I go, she said we do it my way in the room. Silence when I say silence. No one moves unless asked. Rios nodded once. Understood. I'm not promising anything about your system. I'm not asking you to. Behind Rios, the rotors kept the air in motion. Quinn looked down at her hands, steady, no tremor. The compass on her forearm peered from under her sleeve. She turned her wrist until north found the line of the horizon. The helicopter's shadow crossed her feet. It slid up her legs and climbed her torso, a dark oval pulsing with the machine above. She lifted her palm and held it inside the moving dark. The wind pulled at her clothes and filled her ears. She did not step back. She did not step forward. She let the shadow settle on her skin and stay. The crew chief raised a hand. The door waited open to the sea-bright air and the noise that meant work. Quinn looked once at the water. Then she fixed her eyes on the aircraft and took a breath that squared itself into 4. She closed her fingers on the shadow. She moved. Wind beat against Quinn's chest as she climbed into the Seahawk. The cabin smelled like hot metal and antiseptic. A flight medic clipped a harness across her lap and snapped a glove across his wrist. Captain Rios pulled the door shut and signaled forward. The pitch rose. The beach dropped. Sea turned from textured steel to a sheet. Rios handed Quinn a flight suit and a tablet. "Put this on. We are 12 minutes to Pelican Bay." Quinn pulled the suit over her running clothes. Zipper up Velcro, down cuffs snug. The compass on her forearm flashed, then disappeared. She took the tablet. Vital signs scrolled. Photos. A sketch of a fragment lodged along the curve of a vessel. Notes about blood type. The letters CT unavailable sat in a margin. The base had X-ray and ultrasound. No contrast, no cross-sectional map. "Requested gear," Quinn said. "Vascular tray, DeBakey and Gerald forceps. Vascular loops blue and white, Satinsky clamps, Bulldog clamps, Proline 4O and 5O, Fogarty if you have it. 2 units O negative on ice, cell saver if it behaves." Rios relayed it to the headset. Her voice was clipped and calm. "We will have it waiting," she said. "Cell saver has been temperamental. Power has been spotty in that wing." Quinn did not react. She read the numbers again and let them settle where they needed to settle. "Who is running anesthesia?" "Lieutenant Commander Aram Patel." "Good." Quinn watched the line on the monitor for Tyler Brooks. The pressure dipped and climbed. The heart rate ran high and thin. "And your surgeon?" "Lieutenant Cole, 3 years out, smart, over his head today." Quinn nodded. The medic across from her watched her hands. He saw what she saw. No shake. He relaxed a millimeter. Rios leaned forward. "Kandahar," she said. The rotors filled the pause. "You were right to stay." Quinn's mouth moved, but no words came. She drew a breath in 4, held it, let it go. The cabin settled around her. The Seahawk banked over scrub and barracks and the blocky shapes of hangars. Pelican Bay spread beneath like a diagram. A gray hull at the pier still smoking in the belly. The helipad stenciled with a red cross. A crew chief opened the door. Heat hit them like a breath. Chief Petty Officer Eli Garner waited on the pad with a radio at his hip. He lifted a hand. Rios returned it and stepped aside. "Ma'am," Garner said to Rios. Then to Quinn with a flicker of recognition from a different deck, a different ward, "Doc." Quinn did not correct him. "Brooks," she said. "This way." They moved fast through a corridor that was too white and too bright. Posters about safety rules lined the walls. A coffee stain had dried into a map on the floor where someone had skidded. Nurses in scrubs that said USN moved with the muscle memory of training into a reality that strained it. The air carried the clean bite of chlorhexidine under the copper of blood. Lieutenant Nathan Cole met them outside Trauma 2. He was tall and a little stooped from hours that did not fit his frame. A mask hung at his throat. He kept his eyes on Quinn like she was a moving target he did not want to miss. "Commander Mercer," he said without thinking. "Dr. Mercer," she said, "show me." They stepped into the bay. Tyler Brooks lay pale under too much light. His chest was wrapped high and tight. The bandage over his shoulder oozed bright. A nurse pressed hard where the oozing did not want to stop. Numbers blinked on the monitor. 80/50, 130 and thin. Oxygen sat on his face. His eyelashes were blonde and sticky. Quinn peeled back a corner of the bandage without lifting pressure. The wound lay close to the clavicle along the track where the subclavian lived under the anterior scalene. She traced the likely path in her head. Entry, angle, depth. The vertebral branch was near. The brachial plexus sat like a bundle of nerve cables that did not tolerate wrong moves. "How long since injury?" she asked. 3 hours and change, Cole said. 2 units in, no response to volume. "Prep the OR," she said. "Vascular setup. I want loops ready. Satinsky and Bulldogs on the field. Proline loaded. Suction working. Cell saver on if it will stay on. We will need silence during extraction. That is not a suggestion." Cole swallowed. Understood. Patel appeared at the head of the bed, soft-spoken and solid. "We are ready to take him," he said. "Pressure's slipping." Quinn checked the nurse's hand. "Keep that angle," she said. "You are buying him minutes." They rolled. The gurney rattled through the doors and into a hallway where a siren alarmed somewhere, and no one moved toward it because they were already moving as fast as they could. The operating room was smaller than a civilian suite, clean, compact, efficient. Lights hung on articulated arms. The table sat, already warmed. Instrument trays gleamed, and a nurse counted under her breath without looking up. The smell shifted from ER to OR, less chaos, more ritual. Quinn scrubbed at the sink with her eyes on the window. Inside, Cole and Patel positioned Tyler. The pressure dipped again. Patel adjusted, coaxed, watched the line obey. Rio stood behind the glass with the base commander hands loose at her sides, face set, in the calm she wore like a uniform. Gown and gloves slid on with the small elastic snap she had missed. The paper of the gown whispered. The glove fingers seated over her knuckles. The compass stayed covered and still. She stepped to the field. Cole stood across from her, eyes too wide. Patel nodded once and returned his attention to the head of the bed. Scalpel, Quinn said. It lay in her hand with a weight that belonged there. She extended the wound to give herself room to see. Blood welled. Not the fountain yet. The kind that warns and waits. Suction. The field cleared. She found the anterior scalene and eased it aside. Muscle opened to show the pale tube of the artery under a layer that looked like silk and lied like glass. The fragment showed itself dark and angular, kissing the vessel wall. A wrong breath would push it through. Loops, she said. Cole handed blue and white. She slid them under proximal and distal, reading with fingertips what her eyes could not get yet. She made the proximal loop snug and felt the tension change. Distal next. She checked the brachial plexus with a touch light enough to be almost not there. No twitch, no movement. Good. Bulldogs. She placed them above and below to bank the vessel. The section between blanched. Flow control bought time the heart would have taken. She made a small window wider with a careful sweep. Retractor, she said, small. A Richardson slid in and lifted tissue just enough. The field steadied. The monitor beeped in a pattern that suggested a limit. Proline 4O loaded. The scrub tech had it ready. She set it beside the field where the hand that needed it later could find it without looking. Everyone, she said, and her voice filled the room without getting louder. I am extracting now. No movement, no talk. If you breathe, do it like a statue. Patel looked once at her and then at the monitors. He nodded to himself and steadied his hands. Quinn took the fragment with DeBakey forceps. She felt the bite where metal and muscle had married under pressure. She felt the way the tip pressed the arterial wall without puncture. She breathed and counted. 4 in, hold, 4 out, hold. Time moved at a different speed in her chest than in the room. She rotated the fragment a degree to follow its entry. She gave it a pressure that asked instead of forced. The metal shifted. The artery sighed. The shadow around the field pulsed with the beat that did not reach the blanched section. A sound rose from the monitor. The pressure slumped. The tone went thin and high. Someone swore under a mask in a voice that wanted to be quiet but was not. Quinn did not look up. The fragment moved another millimeter. She kept the angle. The suction whispered. The light hummed. The room held its breath along with her. Patel said nothing, but she felt him tighten the world at the head of the bed. A nurse took a half step forward and stopped because she had promised. The fragment slid one more whisper of distance. The arterial wall trembled under her left hand. The line on the monitor flattened toward a place that made people move. In the observation room, Rios did not move at all. Quinn set her wrist against the retractor to make a lever where there was none. She felt the metal clear the last thread of muscle that tried to hold it. She drew it back along the way it had come. Every fiber in her hands knew exactly how far it was from a tear that would end a 19-year-old on a bright table. The tone climbed higher. Pressure numbers fell. Tyler Brooks was a pale raft in a bright sea. Quinn's breath squared itself again. 4 in, hold, 4 out, hold. The fragment was almost free. The monitor gave a long, unwavering note. The tone leveled into a flat line. Quinn did not lift her eyes. She felt the fragment loosen a final thread, then come clean into the mouth of the forceps. Blood answered with a bright jet from the pinched artery. Pressure here, she said, and her left index finger sealed the leak. Proline. The needle driver met her right hand. The first stitch bit through the near edge of the arterial wall, crossed the small rent, and came out clean on the far side. She tied fast, snug, but not strangling. Second stitch. Third. The fountain thinned to a pulse, then to a sheen. She eased her finger and watched. No spread. She set a fourth stitch to guard the line. Release distal. The clamp came off. Blood pushed past the repair and colored the vessel back to life. No ooze, no sudden bloom. Release proximal. Patel called out numbers that sounded like music after the flat tone. 82 climbing, heart rate easing, oxygen holding. Check distal pulse, Quinn said. A nurse at the wrist nodded, radio present, strong. Quinn backed the retractor a whisper to assess tension. The suture line held. She placed a fine layer of tissue over the repair and set tiny interrupted stitches to keep it quiet. The room exhaled without sound. She looked at Tyler Brooks. The boy's eyelids fluttered. Patel adjusted a dial and spoke to him the way you speak to someone crossing into a safer place. Quinn rested a gloved hand briefly on the drape near Tyler's shoulder. "You are through the worst," she said. "Let the meds carry you." She closed in layers precise and calm. Skin took its turn last, the blue of proline a ruled line on pale. When Quinn stepped away, the scrub nurse took the bloodied fragment into a tray and labeled it. Cole kept staring at the field as if it might undo itself if he blinked. "Watch him for swelling at the site," Quinn said. "Monitor for signs of hematoma and distal ischemia. He should be fine." Cole's eyes refocused. He nodded. Yes, doctor." Above the glass, Captain Rios stood with the base commander. He had the stillness of a man who had learned how to wait while others worked. He watched Quinn scrub out, watched her look through the window once more at Tyler, watched her turn already toward the next chart. "Who is she?" he asked without looking away. "The best combat trauma surgeon I ever had," Rios said. The words had no polish to them. They were simple weight. Quinn dried her hands. The paper towel rasped. The sink water ran pink and then clear. She looked down as the last trace spiraled away. Her reflection was a soft smudge in mirror steel. She let it be. "Next case," she said to Cole in the corridor. "Name and injuries." "Petty Officer Dixon," he said, flipping a clipboard page but already knowing. "Abdominal trauma. Ultrasound shows fluid. Blood pressure unstable. Mechanism suggests possible aortic injury. Let us move." Dixon had the gray skin of a body that was more empty than it should be. His belly was taut and tender under swollen dressings. Ultrasound gel made a slick glitter under the lights. Patel had lines in place, blood-primed oxygen steady. The room tightened around the idea of a major vessel. "Open," Quinn said. She went midline swift through skin and fascia. The peritoneum released a heat that carried the copper of blood. Dark fluid moved toward the suction like tidewater. She placed packs into quadrants and took quick stock. The liver bled a little, the spleen not much. The retroperitoneum bulged in a way that made her change her grip on the retractor as if it could change gravity. "Suspect aorta," she said. "Cole, hand me a Satinsky when I ask." "Not yet." He drew breath through his mask. "Yes." She exposed gently along the aorta, respecting the tissue planes, mapping with her fingers the way a person maps a coastline by touch and fog. The vessel came into view slick and pale except for a small lip where force had torn a bite. Blood tracked along it like river scars. "Cell saver on?" she asked without looking up. The perfusionist lifted a thumb and then frowned at a screen that flickered. "Online, but I am seeing dip." "Keep it honest," she said. "We will not count on it." She lifted the aorta with a soft-jawed clamp to let her see the tear. It was not a punch-out. It was a laceration that obeyed an edge. She could work with that if the world stayed steady. "Partial clamp," she said. "Satinsky ready." Cole set the curved clamp into her palm. She felt its weight like a promise. She placed it so flow would continue around it. The vessel deformed just enough to give her a dry field where she needed it. "Proline 3-0. Patel spoke numbers that kept rhythm. The nurse handed blood. The suction drew a continuous thread into its throat. The room was a metronome with people inside it. Quinn set interrupted stitches along the tear, taking small bites and setting each knot with a pressure that lived between firm and cruel. Cole held the retractor without shaking. Sweat ticked along his hairline. He was learning the part of surgery that no book teaches. The feeling through instrument steel when tissue says yes. "See," Quinn said quietly without looking away, "how the edge holds memory. Not mushy. It wants to come back to itself. That tells you this is a primary repair. If it frayed, we would think about a patch or a graft." He nodded. "I feel it." "Good. Feel it so you never forget it." She tied the last stitch. Blood ran under the clamp in an arc that told her the lumen was true. She released a fraction of pressure and watched. No bloom. The line stayed tight. "Release slowly," she said. He eased the clamp back under her hand. The aorta opened to its duty. No leak. The packs came out one by one with inspection between each. Bleeding elsewhere was minor and obedient. "Close," she said. They closed. Dixon's color improved with blood that stayed in him. He would have pain and a scar and stories he would tell wrong. He would be alive to tell them. The next hour stacked cases like crates on a skid. PFC Morales with a chest that sounded wrong and moved less on the left. Quinn guided Maya's equivalent, a young corpsman with careful hands, through a chest tube that hissed air and then coughed blood. The lung climbed back with a sigh. Another sailor had a femoral bleed that disappeared from view until traction on the leg made a path. A third case needed a splenectomy they did not want to do but chose because the alternative was worse. Rios moved between observation and corridor fielding calls, making decisions that made other decisions possible. Garner carried instruments and messages with the same economy with which he had carried ammunition years ago. Cole stopped checking the clock and started hearing the work. Every few minutes the power in the wing gave a small dip. Not a failure, a reminder. The lights dimmed as if thinking and returned. Each time Patel's hand stayed steady, each time Quinn did not look up. Did. In a pause that was more breath than break, Cole leaned against a wall with a water bottle and looked at Quinn. "How did you know to rotate the fragment?" he asked, not whispering but low enough to keep the question in their shared space. "The body tells you the angle," she said. "You feel the first lie, then you follow the truth." He nodded like that made sense, because in the room it did. They rolled a gurney into the next suite. The patient on it was small and older than the rest. A civilian contractor caught under something that did not discriminate. Pelvic fracture stable for now, belly quiet. She triaged in a glance and diverted him toward orthopedics with clear orders on heparin and pain. They did not need her hands. They needed her to say so. Back with the team, Quinn rinsed gloved fingers in a basin while a nurse swapped trays. The water turned a thin smoke of red and ran away. The hum in the walls rolled a half step down and up again. She listened to it like a musician hears a tuning change. "Everything's steady," Patel said, reading her listening. "For now," she said. Garner leaned into the doorway with a list. 2 more inbound from the pier. Stabilized. 1 with belly, 1 with arm shrapnel. ETA 8. "We can turn this room in 10, Cole said, surprising himself. "Make it 9, Quinn said. "We will steal 1 minute from nowhere." They moved like a single thought broken into parts. Linens changed, surfaces wiped. Instruments counted and opened. The odor of cautery hung and faded. The observation glass reflected faces that did not have time to look back at themselves. Quinn checked on Tyler through a window. He lay with eyes closed, vitals neat and orderly. A nurse adjusted a blanket and smiled at something he mumbled. The bandage at his shoulder was clean. The skin under it did not swell. The line at his wrist kept time. She touched the glass with the back of her fingers the way you touch a photograph. Then she turned because someone said her name. Dr. Cole called from the doorway of the next room. "We are set." She walked in. The brightness met her, the green field of drapes, the quiet drum of machinery. Her hands lifted for new gloves and the latex snapped into place with a sound that was its own small announcement. A perfusion pump coughed. Its screen flickered from green to gray and back. An overhead light gave a single blink and recovered. The hum underfoot changed color. Quinn looked at the perfusionist. He had already reached for the manual backup on the cell saver. She nodded once and looked at Patel. He was already checking the generator readout. She turned to Cole. "Hold retraction," she said, Satinsky at hand. The light flickered again, just a heartbeat, then steadied. The air held still as if the whole building had taken one careful breath. The light steadied. The hum climbed back to its usual pitch. Quinn set her feet, palms open to the field. "Knife," she said. The next sailor on the table had a belly that argued with the monitors. Ultrasound had shown pockets of fluid that did not belong. The incision opened and the room filled with the heat of a body that had been bleeding in silence. Pax went in. The suction took what it could. Patel murmured pressure and heart rate. Cole held retraction and kept his breathing in time. Quinn lifted the small bowel out of harm and found the source behind the mesentery. A thin artery hissed where a fragment had skimmed it and left trouble. She pinched the spot with a finger and felt the vessel hold under pressure. "Clip," she said, then stitch. Metal clicked into place. The edge settled. The room exhaled a little. She checked the rest of the bowel, found 2 small serosal tears, and reinforced them with quick stitches that lay neat and low. "Close," she said. The pace felt right again. The rhythm was work and not panic. They moved the last of the morning's cases through 2 rooms that never went quiet. A leg wound that hid a femoral nick under a hematoma that pretended to be nothing. A chest with a stubborn air leak that gave up after a second tube and a better angle. a handful of glittering metal that needed patience and a loop magnifier. Garner carried blood from the lab with the care he would give to a sleeping child. Rio stood in the glass and did not interfere. Then came the case that raised the room 2 degrees, an abdominal trauma that refused to fit its numbers. The belly looked wrong in the way of pressure. Pressure comes from the places no one wants to open. Quinn put her hand inside and went to the source without ceremony. The aorta had been insulted and was letting the idea of a leak become a fact. Satinsky, she said, partial occlusion. Cole placed the clamp where she indicated. She watched the lumen blush white where it needed rest and red where blood should still go. The field steadied. The tear was a mouth that wanted to close. The lights flickered again. Not a hint. A dip that made shadows climb the walls and slide away. A pump coughed. The cell saver screen dropped to gray. Patel's eyes flicked to the generator readout. The line stayed steady. The room held. Quinn did not stop. Proline 3-0. She set sutures like fence posts along a property line. Small bites. Even spacing. Each knot pulled snug and true. Cole watched her hands and felt the vessel answer. His fingers found the pressure that held without hurting. Add a stitch, she said. Here. He placed it. The tip of the needle met the far wall and came back with a resistance that said yes. He tied with hands that did not quite shake. Release a quarter, she said. He loosened the clamp. The suture line stayed dry. She nodded. Release. The aorta opened to its job. The packs came out with patience. Blood stopped where blood belonged. The monitor settled into the comfort of numbers that made sense. She closed the belly with economy. The skin took a clean line. Patel called time and pressures and a note on urine output that sounded like a compliment. Hours stacked. The sun moved outside to a place they could not see. Food went untouched. Water bottles emptied and appeared. The wing's power dipped twice more without quitting. The cell saver worked when it worked and did not when it did not. No one referred to the dips out loud. The body of the hospital kept its own secrets. Quinn listened with her hands, not her ears. When the last case was done, it had been 9 hours without a break that counted. 12 patients, 12 beds filled with the quiet that follows violence. In recovery, nurses checked lines and adjusted blankets and smiled at nothing. In the OR, the smell of cautery and antiseptic softened and faded. Quinn stood at the scrub sink and watched the water run pink, then clean. Her shoulders ached. Her feet argued with the floor. Her hands felt heavy in a way that felt honest. She dried them and looked up out of habit. The glass gave her back a face that was tired and complete. Rios found her there. She did not speak right away. She watched Quinn throw the towel away and rest her knuckles on the edge of the counter like she might push the hospital forward with a small effort. 12, Rios said. 12, Quinn answered. They are stable. For now, Quinn said. Rios nodded. The base commander came 2 steps into the doorway and stopped as if he had stepped into a chapel and needed to remember his place. Dr. Mercer, he said. Thank you. Quinn looked at him. He held the gaze long enough to count to 3 and then dropped it. Rios waited until they were alone again. Come back to the Navy, she said. Choice of posts. Or stand up a training program that will keep people alive when their first day becomes this day. Quinn leaned her palms on the counter and watched her hands. The compass under the cuff was a shadow she could feel even when she could not see it. She looked up. I will not put myself back in a system that burned me to protect a secret, she said. Not without trust that does not shift with the wind. You would have it, Rios said. From me, from the people now in place. Quinn drew a breath and let it go. Thank you, she said. Not today. Rios did not argue. Then let me get you home. The Seahawk lifted into a sky that had washed itself clean. The coastline unrolled in a long line of blue and brown. Quinn sat, with her eyes closed, not sleeping, breathing squares into a cabin that hummed. The helicopter set down on the same beach where it had found her. The crew chief opened the door. Wind threw spray across the sand. Rios stepped down behind her. Whatever you decide Rios said today mattered. Quinn nodded. She did not trust words with a size like that. The walk back across the sand felt longer than it should. The beach had returned to being a place and not a doorway. The rotor noise softened into distance. The shadow left the ground and went after it. Seacliff Regional looked like itself when she went in. The fluorescent lights hummed. The coffee still smelled burned. Someone laughed too loud at the wrong end of the hall. The ER moved on its tracks. Cade's office door was open. He was standing when she stepped inside as if sitting would make him smaller. "Dr. Mercer," he said. "Dr. Cade," she said. He did not sit. He looked like he had practiced an apology and then forgotten the lines. "I read your record," he said. "Captain Rios sent it with authorization." He swallowed. The sound was not elegant. "I owe you one apology for not asking, another for not listening, and another for suspending you for doing the thing that kept a person alive." Quinn waited. The room gave him back his own words. "I would like you to take the trauma service," he said. "Head of trauma, full surgical privileges, operational control in trauma events. You would answer to me. But inside that domain, you make the calls." He watched her face and tried to read it. She gave him what she had, which was not much. "I want one condition," she said. "When I act against protocol in order to save a life, you trust the decision in the moment. You let me explain after. You let me document after. You do not pull me off a table while a person is still bleeding out to talk about liability." Cade closed his eyes for half a second. He opened them and nodded. "Agreed. I will carry the responsibility," she said. "You will have it," he said. She sat. He sat. The glasses on his desk glinted. The mug that said "Safety First" faced the wall now. He smiled without humor. "You will build something here," he said. "I will try to build what is needed," she said. He stood and offered his hand. She took it. His grip was dry and careful. Outside the ER had a rhythm she liked. Patients arrived. People moved toward them. Decisions became acts. Maya Chen intercepted Quinn with a look that tried to hide relief and failed. "Are you back?" Maya asked. "Back," Quinn said. "Good. CT is still down," Maya said. "We are doing more with less." "We will make less behave," Quinn said. They walked the length of the nurses' station. Charts lived in screens. Monitors chimed. A boy with a bandaged head cried into a blanket while a nurse found a sticker and a calm tone. An older woman sat with her hands around a paper cup and stared at the linoleum like it knew answers. Life took a number and waited. Quinn paused at the board that listed names and locations. Without thinking, she put a finger against the glass where someone had written Trauma 1. It was a pressure she could feel and not see. She took it away. She turned to Maya. "Come to my office at the end of shift," she said. "We have work to outline, sim space, drills, a few rules that serve the room when words do not." Maya's smile reached her eyes. "I will be there." Quinn left the station and went to the locker room. She opened her door and pulled the jacket from the hook. She rolled the sleeve back for a second and looked at the ink. The lines were black and clear. North sat on the same place as it always had. She let the sleeve fall. On her way out, she passed a window with a view down the length of Sea Cliff streets. The ocean cut a line at the end. Light lay on the water like a blade. Her phone buzzed. A short message from Garner, Brooks Stable, family notified. "Thank you." She typed back a simple line that did not pretend at poetry. "Tell him to rest." Quinn pocketed the phone and stepped back into the hum. The hospital kept time. So did she. Quinn sat in her office and let the quiet settle. The window held a strip of ocean and a sky rinsed clean. On the desk lay a stack of printouts that still smelled like toner, a rough sketch of a sim bay, a pen with a bite mark on the cap. The compass under her sleeve warmed against her skin. Her phone buzzed. The screen lit with a name she knew. Rios. Earthquake. South Pacific Islands. Thousands injured. Joint Task Force staging. Need surgical team lead for 2 weeks. Are you available? Quinn breathed 4 and held. 4 out held. She looked at the room she had said she would build. She looked at the ocean line that cut the far edge of the glass. Her fingers moved. Available. I will bring 2 residents if approved. Maya Chen. Ben Cooper. Approved. Brief arrives within the hour. Thank you. Quinn put the phone face down and stood. Her body had the ache that came after a good day and not a bad one. She stretched her fingers and felt the stiffness leave in small increments. In the hallway outside the ER moved with a rhythm she could hear without looking. She found Maya at the station with a tablet and a jaw set in concentration. Ben stood beside her, a first year who watched hard and spoke little. Quinn rested a knuckle on the desk to get their eyes without raising her voice. You too, she said. Office. Maya stepped in with a hand still on her tablet. Ben followed and closed the door with the care of a person stepping into a place that mattered. Quinn leaned against the desk. There is a deployment, she said. 2 weeks. Joint Field Hospital, earthquake response. You will see more in days than you would see here in months. It will not be tidy. It will be loud. It will smell like dust, fuel blood, and river water. I want you both on my team. Ben blinked and then found words. Yes, he said. Yes, doctor. Maya nodded once, and it was more than a nod. I am ready, she said. You are never ready, Quinn said without judgment. We prepare anyway. She opened a cabinet and pulled down a faded duffel. The zipper rasped. Inside sat a trauma kit that had seen distance. She laid a tourniquet on the desk, a roll of hemostatic gauze, a compact Doppler. She did not make a list. She did not make a speech. She held the tourniquet in one hand and turned it so the windlass showed. You will feel the leg fight you and then give, she said. You turn until the pulse under your hand is gone. You do not stop a quarter turn before that, because you are afraid of hurting someone. You are already hurting them. You are choosing which pain they get to keep. Ben watched as if he could memorize shape into muscle memory. Maya took the hemostatic gauze and unrolled 2 inches to feel its grit. Pack deep, Quinn said, deeper than you think. They stood with the duffel between them, an altar without sacred things. The building hummed. A call light chimed and went quiet when someone answered it. Quinn put the gear back into the bag and zipped it. You will clear it with the chief, she said. Flights are early. Be ready to leave in 3 days. Maya exhaled and smiled with the edge of nerves that mean a person is paying attention. Understood, she said. After they left, Quinn stayed with the view and the quiet for one breath. The phone rang again. The number wore a base exchange code she now recognized. She answered. Mercer, she said. Dr. Mercer, a young voice, said that carried both gratitude and medication. Tyler Brooks, they said I could call. You can. I do not remember much, he said. I woke up and they told me who did it. My mom cried on the phone. My dad did not say anything for a long time, and then he did not stop talking. They said I get to keep my arm. They said I get to go back to my ship when they say. I wanted to say thank you. You rest, Quinn said. You let the people around you do the worrying. My girlfriend wants to meet you, he said, and the boy and the man came through the line. Is that weird? It is fine, she said. We will see what the days bring. He laughed softly. I feel like I should say something big, he said. I do not have anything big. Thank you is all I have. That is enough, she said. When the call ended, the office felt larger. The desk was still a desk. The window was still a window. The water and light made the same line they had made all day, but it seemed truer now. Quinn walked to the sim space on the 3rd floor. The room smelled like new paint and plastic. Monitors blinked without being attached to anything alive. A shelf held the model of a chest with a cavity cut for practice tubes. She touched the rim of the opening smooth and artificial under her fingers. She pictured Maya's hands steadying at the edge, learning not to flinch, learning to listen for the hiss. She left the lab lights off and went back down the stairs. Outside, the sky had shifted toward evening. The air tasted like salt and eucalyptus. The path to the beach ran under a stand of cypress that clicked when the wind moved right. She took it without thinking about where her feet went. The sand folded under her shoes. The tide had laid out a mirror where the sky repeated itself. She walked the hard edge at the waterline and let her breathing square itself without counting. A gull dropped a shell and the crack broke clean and small. Out in the blue distance, a helicopter crossed between cloud and horizon. The sound reached her a moment later. It was not the Seahawk from the morning. It was not anything she could name. It was a machine that moved because people needed it to. She stopped and rolled her sleeve. The compass looked back black on pale. She turned her wrist until north found where the light met the water. The ink did not point to places. It marked a way of moving through them. Back at Seacliff, the ER had shifted to night rhythm. The lights looked warmer, though they were not. Voices dropped half a register. Footsteps softened. The board listed names in a neat grid. Quinn checked on 3 patients whose trajectories needed adjustment and signed 2 orders that would keep them between the lines. In the locker room, she opened the metal door and slid the duffel onto the bench. She set a small headlamp on top and a roll of tape and left them there. She did not write a list. She did not write anything. On her way out, she found Cade by the elevators. He held a folder and looked like a person who had spent the day walking through a house with the lights on for the first time. Everything in motion, he said. It always is, she said. He looked at the bag and then at her face. He did not ask the question that would have made him the wrong kind of curious. We will cover your shifts, he said. Make sure the lab is staffed, whatever you need. Ever. Thank you, she said. He nodded and watched the elevator doors open and close. He stayed where he was, as if being in the hall was his part now. Quinn slept a steady 6 hours and woke before the alarm. The morning smelled like coffee and clean. She packed the duffel with the ordinary care of someone who has done it for years. A book went in on top of the gear, a dog-eared atlas that had lived in more bags than one. She locked the apartment and took the stairs. At the beach, the light slid across the surface in a sheet of pale gold. A Seahawk angled in from the north and slowed over the water. Its shadow stretched long and dark across the damp sand, then shortened as it descended. The rotor wash kicked grit up and made the grass kneel. The door slid open. Maya and Ben came into the wind with their bags. Their faces had the color of people who had not slept much and were not telling their bodies yet. They nodded at Quinn and found places in the weight of the noise. Rio stepped down and met Quinn's eyes. No words at first. They did not need them. Then Rios held out a manifest in a small folder that carried orders and medical passes in an outline that would change in the air. Quinn took them and tucked them into the duffel. She looked at the helicopter. She looked at the water. She lifted her hand and placed her palm under the moving shadow. The air pressed hard along her forearm. She could feel the pulse of the blade in her bones. She breathed 4 in, held, 4 out, held. She stepped forward and climbed in. The crew chief closed the door. The world narrowed to the cabin and the people in it and the work waiting somewhere across blue. The Seahawk lifted. Sand broke into spirals and ran back flat. The hospital and the city slid small, then smaller. The ocean filled the window and made a straight line to the horizon. The compass under her sleeve found it and stayed. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.